survive in this world. If you're strong, you live. If you're weak, you die.
What is up, guys? DT Ninja here to give you guys my RuroKen Hokkaido Arc Chapter 32 discussion. Yo, it's that time again to discuss Kenshin. Yo, we are 2 days away from Chapter 33 of the Hokkaido Arc, which comes out on Thursday. So look forward to the latest updates on my page, DT Ninja 831, as well as DT Ninja Village. So look forward to that. Today we're going to discuss a few things. We're going to discuss the have-nots, which is the title of the chapter, by the way. We're going to discuss the inner conflict of Ashitaro. We're going to discuss Honda of the Kinkaku Heki, and a few other things as well. So let's get to it. Who are the have-nots? Number one, who are the have-nots? So the have-nots literally are people who have nothing. That's where it comes from. They have nothing. They come from nothing. Literally, they're poor, they're homeless, they have no money. And when I first read this chapter, I didn't really think about it as well as I do now. Because when I first read it, I was like, okay, they're talking about Kanryu, right? Kanryu literally says the have-nots, this and that, and we learned that, he had to struggle and all the hardships he had growing up. He was poor, he had nothing, so he's one of them, right? However, Ashitaro's the same way. He grew up without parents. He had, he's a wretched brat. Everyone around him called him troublesome. I mean, he had this reputation where he's rude and he's just, nobody really cared about this kid. And, Kenshin comes around, he, kind of helps him out. And now that's where we are now. So it's interesting, Ashitaro is in the same frame as Kanryu. He is also a have-not. Now, he has something now, but he didn't have things growing up. And that also goes back to his survival of the fittest, mentality of Shishio, right? Shishio, if you're strong, you live. If you're weak, you die. And that's the whole thing. The thing with his hunger for food, that is kind of his survival of the fittest kind of ideal kind of lifestyle, the way he lives his life, just clawing for the next meal. Ashitaro is one of them. Now, Kanryu is one of them. And also, Aran is one of them. So all three members of Kenshin's group now are these have-nots and were in the past. Now, are they now? Not necessarily, but it was in the past, and I like how they're all connected because, they are all fighting in this battle against Honda of the Kinkaku Heki. Now, so, Ashitaro mentions hunger, and I mentioned this before. He does it while fighting. This is all about Ashitaro. Hunger is what drives him. He needs the food. It also drives, his inner self, which is pretty dangerous. We've seen in the past where hunger has driven him to kill, literally kill with, his teeth. Literally, he bit off a spear and put it through the dude's mouth. I mean, he killed him. So, that's where kind of the danger side of Ashitaro comes from. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. I showed this in my review, but it's still pretty dangerous. Literally, he killed him over a ball of rice. And you can see where he puts that spear through his mouth. And afterwards, you can see the gluttonous side of him. He's just like, he has that evil look, and he picks up the ball of rice like it's something that he needs. It's almost like, taking like a part of a human and eating it. I don't know, just the way it kind of looked to him. And Aran, you can see just how distraught he is and trying to help Ashitaro. So yeah, that is really, important to Ashitaro's character. Now, he mentions this in this chapter that he's very hungry. And right after it, you see him with his, the Mugenjin, and he's about to release it, literally after he succumbs to that hunger. So I found that interesting, and it just shows that that is really part of his character. I don't know if the sword is literally calling out to him, but it's interesting to think about. Okay, Kanryu mentions hunger also in this chapter. Kanryu has hardships in the past and growing up without money, his survival, it's different than Ashitaro. Ashitaro is all about food. His hunger for food is his survival. Now, for Kanryu, it's different. Yes, he was hungry, but his survival is money. He wants to make money. That's how he survives. Ashitaro is all about food. Kanryu is all about money. And then you have Aran. Aran is different. Aran does have hunger, but it's not necessarily hungry for food. Literally, his hunger is to find someone important. Find somewhere he belongs, right? He wants to belong somewhere. He is a foreigner, in Japan, and he's now exposed, right? Now, he's mentioned this before, that he wants to go to the shining heart of modernization. This was in the very first chapter for Ashitaro, and we see this flag of America right here, and he says, "This is not the country I belong in." So is very interesting, but that's his hunger. And he said it multiple times, that I want to go to the shining heart of, modernization. That is what he said. And he said it in this chapter as well, this chapter, and Honda kind of mocks him for it. So you can kind of see each of these characters have a different, hunger. And Aran's hunger has to be destination and ambition. So ambition is his hunger. He has an ambition for this destination, which we all have an idea it might be America. That's his survival. That's what drives him. So each of these characters have a drive, and hunger is one of that thing that drives them. But each of them have a different hunger. So I found that interesting. But yeah, that's the have-nots. Those are the have-nots. And I like how all three of them are shown in this chapter, and they're all somewhat connected in a way. But yeah. Okay, why is Aran willing to put his life on the line despite being a non-fighter? Now, Aran, we all know, is a non-fighter. Like I said, he wants to fit in. He wants to belong. So, remember how Kanryu set him aside and said, "Why are you risking your life to save the world for these fools? For the sword fool, you should be utilizing your skills, your talents in a better way." But also, like I said, he wants to belong. He wants to feel useful. And he's definitely not cowardly. He's definitely not cowardly. He is courageous. Like I said, he has this passion. He has this drive, and his ambition. He's ambitious. He wants to go to that shining heart of modernization, and that is what's driving him. That is what he saw when Honda stated to Kanryu and humiliated him in the previous chapters that the merchant makes the money, but I spend it. I take it from the merchant. And that really pissed him off, because he just realized that, this time he wanted to make money by any means necessary, but learning, seeing how Kanryu has been affected and seeing what Honda says, he realizes that the real way to get to that destination, that modernization, is through earning money in the right way, not necessarily just asking for it, but earning it. And this is something that really makes him stand up and fights. Like I said, he refuses to let others step on his dream, his ambition. He's dependable. He's loyal. We've seen this in the past where he actually, obviously he's dependable. He's very smart. But we've seen him actually in action at the very beginning. Ashitaro is fighting against one of these, bosses from the Shishio faction, And he steps in. He literally puts his body on the line for Ashitaro. This is in the second chapter of Ashitaro X Khan. And he literally puts his body to save Ashitaro. Now, obviously, Ashitaro ends up, breaking, part of the boss's weapon, and it ends up exposing Iran's hair, and now everybody knows that he's actually a foreigner. But at the same time, we realize that Iran really does care about his comrades, his companions. So that is a very good quality. That's another reason why he's willing to, put his life on the line. He's passionate about money. Now, like I said, in this past few chapters, we've learned that Iran has changed. He used to be kind of greedy. We saw him when he said the city of money, Otaru, right? When he first talked about it, he was all passionate, but it just seemed like he was out for it just to get money by any means necessary. But now it seems like he's more, driven, but to earn it respectfully, not necessarily just asking for it. So you can definitely tell Kanryu's had an effect on him as well. Because when we saw in chapter 20, I think it was 26, chapter 26, yes, when Kanryu tells him about the value of money. And he tells him that, there is no discrimination when it comes to money. Everyone is, the same. They're equal. And this really hits, Iran pretty, right. It really, touches a chord with him, because you can see he's like, wait a minute, that's me. That relates to me. So he really, takes what Kanryu said very seriously. And, he kind of grows, develops. And I really like how they're showing him. And like I said, he's very smart. He's almost like a tactician, the way he came up with all these, the strategy of him using the shield of gunpowder, relying on Ashitaro, realizing that Kanryu was not given up, and just everything that happened, the whole sequence, and of course, Ashitaro drawing the Mugenjin with the flames being the, what sets off the gunpowder. That was just awesome, right? So those are the reasons I feel like that's the reason why he's willing to, put his life on the line. There's a lot there. But yeah, those are the main reasons. Okay, the next one is Honda, the Kenkaku Heki member fighting Iran in this chapter. Is he the author or owner of the Book of Warriors? Now, what is the Book of Warriors? The Book of Warriors is that big book that the Kenkaku Heki have that basically tells them everything they need to know about all the swordsmen, all the warriors of the past. Now, we heard this from Byakuya at the very beginning. I think this was in chapter 8. Byakuya first mentions the warriors of Japan, and this is when he first tells Kenshin about what he knows about them. Remember, he talked about Shishio, even had a glimpse of Ashitaro there. There were a lot of things that, Byakuya knew, and that was based on the warrior book. Now, in chapter 29, it is shown where the enemy, Honda, actually has a book. It's a steel book, and it has a shuriken in it, right? We all know his shuriken. This is his battle weapon, right? Well, there's also a book of warriors, which is interesting because in chapter 26, or I think it's 26, I'll have to look closely here. Yeah, it's 26. Yeah, it's the same one as the one with Kanryu, the value of money. So This is the book I'm talking about. The one with the big letters for Ken. Literally, that's the Kinkaku Heki. And this book is pretty thick. You guys can see it right there. Now, what's interesting about this is that they go on to talk about Kanryu, and Shimonji is the leader of the Otaru. This is the campaign in Otaru. So he is the one giving the orders, but he's actually asking Honda, is there anyone else that is related to Kanryu? Does he have any, people that, are with him in that entry? So it seems like he is the one that is in charge, but it's also Honda is the one that knows all the information. I found it very interesting that it's actually not Shimonji reading from it, but it's actually Honda. And he's actually not reading it. He actually has it memorized. Because if you can see, the book is actually closed if it's showing, there. So it's actually in his mind already memorized, possibly. Which comes to the next thing. Not only is he holding the book, but he actually is known as the Chronicle, which literally is like a history or record of, history of the Kinkaku Heki or of the warriors themselves. So that's very interesting, and it might have something to do with him being the author. Now, another thing, like I said, RuroKen is his thing. He has a book. He writes in it. I mean, that kind of gives another clue. He's actually shown writing in a tent. This is in chapter 29. And what's interesting about this is in chapter 29, when he's writing in the tent, you can actually see there are two books. I don't know if you can see it that close. Let me try to move it in closer. He's writing here. You see him writing, but there are two books. This darker one looks like the Book of Warriors. He's writing in his own book, or maybe he's writing in the Book of Warriors. I'm not exactly sure which one, but there are two books there. That means it's probably in his possession. I just think he's the owner. He's the one, who writes in it. He's the one that knows the most about it. Maybe he's telling others about it. That's, kind of his thing. That's his main thing. So maybe that also has to do, with his power. So very interesting stuff. And another thing, he says he's the one who pretends to be behind the scenes, controlling everything. He's the author. He is the author, or the person actually writing in this book. And maybe he doesn't even need to write it. It's all up here. So maybe he tells other what to write about. Now, the Book of Warriors literally is translated as a census of the Edo period, which is interesting because, a census is basically a written record of people who lived in the Edo period. So literally, they've been taken, this historical kind of document, and they've made it all about warriors. So I also found that interesting, but yeah, that could be a thing. Anyways, let's move on. Number 4. Will Ashitaro be able to control the flames of the Homuradama, or will they consume him? This is where things get very interesting, guys. The Homuradama is Shishio's attack. You guys know this very well. Shishio has the Homuradama, and we've seen Ashitaro release the Homuradama. So let me show you exactly that instance where he does that, and that is in chapter 1, where he is faced with the fight with Kenshin. So he releases the Mugenjin, the Homuradama is shown, and that's where he's shown, right? So here, he kind of looks almost like, kind of almost in in like a trance, like he's being controlled by the sword. I don't know if he's being controlled by it, but it just seems like he's succumbing to his weakness, and that's why he draws the sword, because he has no other choice. But obviously Kenshin, thwarts him, stops him. But in that case, that is very interesting, because that is the conflict within Ashitaro. Will he be able to control it now? Because in chapter 2 of Ashitaro, we see him almost succumb to it. Now, obviously, he's stopped by Kenshin, but the words of Shishio does drive him to release the Mugenjin, or almost release it. Kenshin stops him before he says he's going to destroy everyone. So that is inside him somewhere, that dark side of Ashitaro. But will he be able to control his anger, that hidden side, that darker half inside that seems to come from the sword and when he holds it? Since he is like Kenshin, I feel that I do feel like he's going to be able to control it. Now, it might not happen right away, because Kenshin also has had conflict, throughout the series. He's not automatically been able to control his inner self. So I also feel like there's going to be two halves. There's going to be the Kenshin side telling him, not to draw it. Remember to protect your comrades. And then there's going to be the Shishio side that's going to be like, show me, how strong you can be, or you'll be that wretched brat for the rest of your life. Now, obviously, the wretched brat is, kind of a reference to his original name, right? But Kenshin changed it. So now he's got the comrades that he wants to protect. So I feel like there's going to be conflict. He's going to have that tempting inside to release, more anger, that power, that darker half. But he's also going to have Asahi and Aran to, be there and protect them. So I feel like he's going to overcome that darkness. And it's very interesting. I do feel like he's going to have control, but it's not going to be right away. We're going to get conflict. We're going to get, parts where, it's going to be close, and, he's just going to have regret. It's going to be somewhat like Kenshin and Batosai. I just have a feeling. Now, will Kenshin confiscate the sword? Because remember, in chapter 1, he literally warns Ashitaro, never draw the Mugenjin again. If you do, I will confiscate it. And in chapter 13, he says the same exact thing. He says, never, ever, by any means, draw the Mugenjin again. And Ashitaro says, yes, okay, I understand, old man. But he has done it based on Aran. He is trusting his friend. This is not based on his weakness. This is based on survival, which is interesting, but it's also based on his friend Aran. Literally, he trusts him. So that's why he releases the Mugenjin. So I found that very interesting. I think Kenshin at first will be angry with him for not listening, but once he realizes what Aran has done and, set up and the whole dynamic, I feel like he's going to forgive him and give him another chance. That's just my feeling on the whole thing. But yeah, I found it very interesting. And also, remember Ashitaro apologizes to Kenshin in this chapter. It's interesting because Aran actually forces him to apologize in chapter 1 after almost going to jail again. Basically, he's at the dojo and he's like, Kenshin has done this for you. You need to apologize. Say you're sorry. So he says, I'm sorry. You can see it right there. He says, I'm sorry. And then he says, say thank you. And he says, no, I don't do thank yous. And you can see them just like fighting like cats and dogs here. But it's interesting because it just shows the growth of Ashitaro. So that's another reason why I feel like he will overcome the darkness. But I love conflict. I love it. All right, guys, so the next one. Which do you think is more likely true about the Mugenjin, Shishio's blade? The blade chose Ashitaro, or he chose the blade? Now, what's interesting about this, Kenshin is holding the Mugenjin in chapter 1, and he literally says, how in the world did this return from hell? Did it choose Ashitaro to be its wielder, its new master, or did Ashitaro happen to choose it? Now that's where the question comes from, literally Kenshin. So, I've done some thinking. Now, as far as Kenshin goes, remember he vowed to never kill again, and he just happened to come across Shaku Arai after leaving the battlefield, after leaving all the fighting behind to go wandering. Now, he just happens to come across him. Shaku Arai just tosses him the Sakabato. He catches it, and he learns that, this sword is going to be hard to fight with. And it just happens to be that way. It's not that he chose the sword. It kind of just happened. It came across him as a way to fulfill that vow, to protect others without killing. So I feel that's Kenshin, for Kenshin's path. Now, for Ashitaro, it's very different. It's very different. Now, I would say the Mugenjin chose him. It's been calling out to him. Okay, he did meet its true master. He met Makoto Shishio. Now, and not only did he meet him, I mean, this guy even ate Makoto Shishio's food. I mean, he's strung up like, he's about to be killed for, eaten for dinner. I mean, look at this. He eats his food. He doesn't even care. And, he makes Shishio laugh. Shishio puts his hand on his head. I mean, he said, you'll become the 11th sword. I mean, this is huge. So, he's got a history with the master of the original, of the blade. So, I mean, he's got something to go with it. But it's not just that. It goes further than that. So, in chapter 1 of Ashitaro the Ex-Con, it shows him actually getting it from the hiding place. And he reveals what he did. He's like, how did you come across it? And he's like, well, I was the last one to leave Shishio's hideout. Now, think of this. He was the last one, and it was on fire. Remember how the whole place was on fire? That a whole death match arena on the top. It literally came crashing down. That means the sword that Shishio had was on the top. It literally fell down from all those flames crashing down, and he was towards the bottom, and it was still, there were still flames everywhere. Apparently, Ashitaro was rolling around in fire. He states that he was rolling around in fire. I originally thought it was the sword that was on fire. Literally, the hilt, the sheath, everything was on fire. But actually, Ashitaro was the one on fire because it literally collapsed down. And so he grabbed on to the Mugenjin, to protect himself, to survive. Literally, it was away from him. And that was something he grabbed on, to get away from the fire. So that's what saved him. It literally is survival of the fittest for him. And that sword literally saved his life. So I found that very interesting. And I'm just surprised I didn't realize that before. But yeah, I just have a feeling that the sword literally is kind of talking to him, calling out to him, and literally it did choose him. And that's kind of why he feels that it feels right. The moment he held on to it, he said there was something about it where it just fit in his hands perfectly. It felt right. And, that's the whole thing. Like, he tells Kenshin it suits him. That's why he doesn't want to give it up. Because literally, it's like his life. He literally was saved by it, so he doesn't want to let it go. So I found that interesting. And that's why I feel that it has, chose him as the new wielder, the new master. And it's just interesting that, he's kind of holding the spirit of Shishio, and, that's very interesting to me in the whole conflict with Ashitaro. But yeah, I feel like the sword actually chose him. Alright guys, so the last thing we're going to talk about is about Shimonji. Do you think Shimonji will confront Asahi, the female member of Kamiya Dojo? Now, we remember the last time seeing Asahi, she was fleeing Gato's house after getting the intel about the Kinkaku Heki. She ran away. What if Shimonji confronts her? What if he threatens her? With, her Yami Nobu past and everything. Like, I could see that happening. Also, there's a possibility she might have to fight, and also the conflict within Yami Nobu, Kamiya Dojo. Also, this would be a great opportunity for someone to swoop in and save her. Like, Aoshi Shinomori. Like, how awesome would that be? Like, Asahi has to fight, and suddenly Aoshi comes in and saves the day, and we get a fight between Aoshi Shinomori and Shimonji. Since he said his name in a previous chapter, that would be awesome. It'd be a great way to reintroduce his character, and maybe we learn a little bit about his mission back in Kyoto. So yeah, guys, and also Asahi and Misao could have, kind of interaction because Misao is definitely coming there. So now you'd have two females talking to each other. That would be interesting. They're similar in age. I think Misao would be a little older, but yeah, very interesting stuff. So there's a lot of other things like Saito and Sapporo, Nagakura, Sano at Gato's house with Ono, and also back in Tokyo with Yaiko and, of course, Yutaro. And then you got, back in Hakodate, you got, Kaoru and her family, and also Sojiro and Monk Anji and the Juppon Gatana guarding over Mount Hakodate. So you got a lot of things going on. So that's pretty much it for the discussion. I hope you guys enjoyed. Chapter 33 will be coming out on Thursday in Japan, so look forward to the latest updates on that. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one.